The moment we booted up this game, something felt wrong. And I don't mean wrong like, oh no, this is gonna be spooky. I mean wrong like your stomach drops for no reason. Your brain starts whispering, don't do this, but your hands keep moving anyway. That kind of wrong. The title screen was nothing special at first glance. Just a black background, the words the 2007 Mystery Fleshpit disaster pulsing faintly, almost like it was breathing. No menu music, no background image, no fancy animation. Just silence and that low, unsettling hum you can only barely hear if you lean closer to your headphones. It sounded almost like static, or maybe like someone whispering just below the edge of comprehension. I joked about it at first, saying it looked like one of those bootleg games you find on shady forums at 3 a.m. But the longer I stared at it, the less funny it got. The title didn't feel like a name, it felt like a warning. And the cursor, it didn't glide across the screen. It stuttered, twitched, like something was fighting me for control. Every little movement sent this weird tingle down my arms, like I was dragging it across skin instead of pixels. I should have quit right there, but of course I didn't. Curiosity kills, right? So I clicked start. Except it didn't fade into a loading screen. The screen blinked once, just once, like an eye opening, then everything was black. I thought it froze. My friend sitting next to me was already rolling his eyes, saying, "Great, game's broken." But then, faintly, shapes began to form. We weren't in a level, we weren't in a lobby. What appeared on screen looked like a place, a real place. Dust in the air, shadows moving across rock formations. A crater stretching out so far I couldn't see the bottom. The edges of my screen pulsed red, like I was standing too close to something alive, something that didn't want me there. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't just a game about the Mystery Fleshpit. This was the disaster. The one from 2007, the one people whispered about online, but never really explained, the one no one was supposed to talk about. My chest tightened, my hands felt cold on the controller. Something about this felt too real, too personal, like the game was showing me something I wasn't supposed to see. And just as I was about to say, okay, let's back out, this is too weird, the ground in front of us shifted. The whole screen shivered, not like an earthquake, not like the environment was shaking, no, it was breathing. And that was the moment we realized this wasn't going to be just another horror game. The desert stretched out forever. Quiet, still, no wind, no stars, just this dull haze that made everything look washed out, like the game had drained the life out of the world. And right in the center of it all was the crater, massive, endless, but it wasn't just a hole in the ground. The walls of it weren't rock, they were something else. At first, I thought it was some kind of textured glitch. The surface rippled like damp fabric tugged from below, but then I noticed the veins, thin, purple lines pulsing faintly just beneath the surface. My stomach dropped. I leaned closer to the screen, squinting, whispering, due to that skin. My friend laughed nervously. No way, that's just bad graphics. But every step closer made it harder to deny. The sand our character was standing on wasn't crunching like sand. It was sinking slightly, the way your foot sinks into flesh, a soft indentation, and then a subtle rebound, like the ground itself was reacting. And then we saw it, a sign half, buried near the rim of the crater, rusted, broken, the words barely legible, but enough to make my throat tighten. National Park Service, and below it, scratched across the metal, Mystery Fleshpit. My friend leaned back in his chair. Okay, nope, I'm not playing a creepypasta come to life. But I couldn't look away. My heart was hammering, and for some reason I couldn't explain, I had to see more. Like the game wasn't giving me an option anymore, then it happened. A loud crackle ripped through the speakers, sharp, distorted, like an old intercom system. I jumped so hard my headphones almost flew off, and through the static came a broken voice. Containment breach detected. Evacuate immediately. Repeat, evacuate immediately. The words looped 3 times before cutting off. Silence, total silence. I glanced at my friend. His face was pale. Bro, what breach? What are we supposed to be evacuating from? Before I could answer, the screen flickered, and the edges of the crater started to shift, not collapse. Shift like something beneath it was rolling over in its sleep. The surface bulged in places, veins stretching and tightening. I felt my throat go dry, and then the camera, without me touching a thing, slowly tilted down into the abyss. There was no bottom, just a black, endless throat lined with ridges, slick and glistening like something alive. I whispered, "This doesn't feel like a game anymore," and just as I said that, something moved inside the pit. Huge, wet, a shadow scraping against the walls as it pulled itself closer to the surface. The pit pulsed once, like a heartbeat, and then everything went quiet. Too quiet, even the faint hum that had been buzzing in the background since the start of the game was gone. Just this suffocating silence that made the room around me feel smaller, heavier. I didn't want to move. My friend didn't either. We just sat there, frozen, staring at that black abyss on the screen. And then, out of nowhere, the environment around us began to change. Towers, massive floodlights blinked on one by one around the rim of the crater. Red strobes cut through the dark, washing the flesh walls in a sick, glowing haze. At first I thought they were part of the scenery, but then I saw movement, shadows, tall, thin figures shifting against the light. Not human, too long, too wrong. Their arms hung almost to the ground, their heads jerking in sharp, unnatural angles, like their bones didn't know where to stop. "Tell me those are NPC," my friend muttered, but even his voice cracked, like he already knew the answer. I tried to turn away to move the character back from the crater, but the controls resisted. My inputs lagged, almost like the game didn't want me to leave. The camera jerked forward, dragging us closer to one of the floodlit towers, and that's when I saw it, a steel hatch built into the side of the crater wall. Heavy doors, dented and smeared with something dark. And then, without me pressing a single button, the hatch groaned open. The sound, the sound, metal scraping against metal, echoing through the speakers until it felt like the noise was inside my skull. The screen shook, the edges glitching with static, like even the game was struggling to render what was coming next. We were pulled forward, step by step. Each movement felt forced, unnatural, like the game was walking us inside against our will. The hatch slammed shut behind us, sealing us in darkness. For a few seconds, all we could hear was our characters breathing. Slow, uneven, and then click. The lights inside flickered on, revealing a narrow hallway lined with steel and wires. But the walls weren't right. The panels pulsed, just barely, like they were stretched over something beneath. "Like skin," my friend whispered. "Bro, this isn't a facility. It's alive." We started down the corridor. Every step echoed like it was happening right behind us instead of in front. The deeper we went, the more the sound changed from metallic clangs to something wetter. Squish, drip, squish. My pulse was racing, but I couldn't stop. My hands gripped the controller tighter, knuckles white, waiting for something, anything, to jump out. And finally, we reached a door at the end of the hall. It was already open. Inside was a massive chamber. Rows of machines half dismantled, wires dangling like veins torn out of a body. On the floor, giant footprints smeared across the metal, wet and shining under the light. Something had been here, recently, and just as I leaned closer to the screen, trying to make out where those prints led at first, I thought I imagined it. That sharp, heavy thud echoing behind us. My brain scrambled for excuses. Maybe it was the game's audio bugging out. Maybe it was just my chair creaking. But then it came again, louder, closer. My friend whipped his head around, eyes wide. Dude, that wasn't the game. I muted the audio for half a second. The silence from the speakers made the sound in the room even clearer. Thud, thud, slow, deliberate. Like something was pacing just out of sight. I laughed nervously, trying to play it off. Okay, haha, very funny. Did you set up a prank? But my voice cracked halfway through, and the look on his face told me he was just as freaked out as I was. And then the game dragged us forward again, back into the chamber with those wet footprints. The camera shifted down, and I swear my stomach turned. The prints weren't human. They were huge, clawed at the edges, sunk deep into the metal floor like the creature was heavier than anything that should even exist. Every single step glistened, leaving behind this thick red, black smear that dripped as if it was still fresh. We followed them because of course we did. What else could we do? The game wasn't letting us leave. Every time I tried to move backwards, the character froze, locked in place until I nudged forward again. Almost like something behind us was waiting, herding us deeper inside. The footprints led to another door. This one wasn't mechanical. It wasn't even man-made. The walls stretched open, muscles curling back like a throat inviting us in. Wet strings of something I don't even want to describe hung down from the edges, swaying gently as if breathing. My friend gagged, "Nope, nope, 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 I'm out." He literally pushed his chair back from the desk. But I couldn't stop. My hands felt glued to the controller. My pulse was pounding in my ears. And when we stepped through that doorway, everything changed. The chamber beyond wasn't a facility. It was a stomach. Walls rippling, bile dripping, machinery embedded into the flesh like it had been swallowed and half-digested. Sparks crackled from rusted panels as if the tech was still trying to fight its way out. The smell, I could almost smell it through the screen. Acid, rot, wet copper. Then the lights flickered once, twice, and in the corner something moved, not just a shadow. Something breathing, massive, slow. The sound reverberated through the speakers like a bass drum rattling my chest. I froze. My friend whispered, "Please tell me that's just background detail." But then it exhaled, a hot, guttural sound that filled the entire chamber. The creature shifted closer, and for the first time I saw the outline. A head too large for its body, jaw hanging slack, lined with teeth that weren't meant for eating, they were meant for shredding. Its skin glistened, stretched too tight, almost translucent. And those eyes, God, those eyes, they weren't glowing or monstrous. They were human, wide, glassy, like they were begging for help. I whispered, "What the hell is this thing?" And then the creature twitched. Its head snapped toward us. The moment its head snapped toward us, I swear I stopped breathing. The creature didn't move right away. It just stared. Its chest heaved, ribs jutting out like broken branches, and that horrible human stare locked on our character as if it could see straight through the screen. My friend whispered, "Don't move, just don't move," like that was even an option, and then it crawled. Not fast, not at first. Each limb bent the wrong way, cracking against the metal, dragging claws that screeched across the floor. The sound alone was enough to make my skin crawl. Every scrape was nails on a chalkboard, echoing like it was happening in the room with us. I mashed the controller, trying to back away, trying to turn around, but the game only let me move one direction, deeper into the chamber. The camera swayed, glitching as the monster gained speed. That slow, agonizing crawl suddenly broke into a lunge. The whole screen shook, alarms blaring overhead like the game itself was panicking. We ran, down corridors that weren't built for humans. Walls squeezing tight, pulsating, veins bursting with each slam of the monster's limbs behind us. Sparks rained down as it tore through cables, shredding steel panels like paper. Every time I looked back, it was closer, so close I could see strings of saliva hanging from its teeth, dripping onto the floor and sizzling as they burned through the metal. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. My palms were slick on the controller. My friend was yelling, half terrified, half laughing in that hysterical way you laugh when you know you're screwed. "Go, go, go, don't stop." And then the game did something I wasn't ready for. The camera cut away. For a split second, we weren't looking at our character anymore. The screen showed a security feed, grainy, black and white, time-stamped 2007. A hallway, wide and industrial, and real people in hazmat suits running for their lives. Behind them, the same creature. I froze. My brain scrambled. Wait, what? This isn't just gameplay anymore. And then, just as suddenly, it cut back. We were in control again, sprinting through the chamber, the monster's guttural breaths practically shaking the walls. We spotted an exit up ahead, a steel door hanging half open, sparks flying from the hinges. My friend screamed, "In there, now." I shoved the stick forward, our character diving through the gap just as the monster slammed into the frame behind us. The screen went white. For a moment, I thought we'd escaped, thought maybe that was the big chase sequence and we were safe. But then the white faded, and we weren't in a new level. We were in something else. The walls were flesh again, pulsing, dripping, but this time they were lined with cages. Rusted bars, bent from the inside, each one holding something different. Shapes, twisted, broken silhouettes that shifted just enough to prove they weren't dead. One of them moved closer to the bars, its face pressed into the dim light, and I swear my blood ran cold. It looked human. It pressed its face closer to the bars, and for half a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, it really was a person. Pale skin, hair matted with sweat, eyes darting like someone begging for help. But then its mouth opened. Not a scream, not words, just this wet, tearing sound as its jaw unhinged far wider than anything humanly possible. The skin stretched, tendons snapped, and the mouth just kept going, curling down into its throat like a snake. My friend literally shoved his chair back from the desk. Nope, I'm done, turn it off. But I couldn't. The game wasn't letting me pause. The controller vibrated in my hands, the character inching closer to the cage on its own. Every nerve in my body screamed to pull away, to look away, but I couldn't. Those eyes locked onto mine, even through the screen, and I felt this horrible sinking feeling that it wasn't looking at the character. It was looking at me, and then, all at once, every cage lit up, dozens of them, rows and rows stretching into the dark, each one holding something worse than the last. Human silhouettes bent backwards, limbs fused together, faces stretched smooth without features. Some of them pressed against the bars, writhing like they wanted out. Others just stood there, watching, silent. The intercom crackled again. That same broken voice, faint under layers of static. The 2007 containment breach was never reported. This event never happened. I felt my chest tighten. My friend whispered, "What the hell does that mean?" And then the cages all opened at once. The screen erupted in noise, shrieks, gurgles, pounding footsteps, as dozens of those things poured into the hallway, crawling, sprinting, flying at us in this blur of impossible shapes. I mashed every button, trying to run, trying to fight, but the game locked us in place. The camera spun wildly as they closed in, closer and closer, until one of them lunged directly at the screen. The last thing I saw was its teeth, rows and rows of them, stretching down into endless dark. The screen cut to black. Silence, and then in tiny white text at the center of the void, one sentence appeared: "You shouldn't have come here." I stared. My friend stared. Neither of us moved. And then, as if mocking us, the game dumped us right back to the title screen. The words, "The 2007 Mystery Fleshpit Disaster," pulsing, breathing, like nothing had happened. We didn't say anything for a while, just sat there in the glow of the monitor, trying to process what we'd just seen. Finally, I laughed, shaky, nervous. Safe to say, we're never opening that game at night again. And hey, if you think you'd be brave enough to keep playing, drop a comment. Because me, yeah, no, I'm done, but something tells me this isn't over.